The more inclusive we can be in thinking about these stories and how we tell them, the bigger we grow the audience and the more powerful the metaphor becomes.
Mm-hmm. You know, it used to be where sci-fi, fantasy were just strictly entertainment. Biggest explosions, the biggest fights, the biggest this, that, and the other. And now it's truly about advancing. All that's still there, but it's also about advancing conversations. And that's why I love this medium.
Marvels Avengers bekam letzte Woche die bisher größte Erweiterung namens War for Wakanda. Und dem einen oder der anderen ist sicher schon die neue, tiefe, autoritäre Stimme von T'Challa aufgefallen. Wer an Kratos denken musste, hat hier vollkommen richtig assoziiert, denn Christopher Judge, der Sprecher von Kratos höchstpersönlich, hat nun Black Panther neues Leben eingehaucht. Ihm gegenüber sitzt Evan Narcisse, der aktuell an den Comics von Black Panther schreibt, und beide erzählen mir, welche Interpretationen ihnen beim Black Panther besonders wichtig waren. Nach dem letzten Interview mit Gameschreiberin Hannah McLeod und Scott Walters zeichnet sich ein sehr sympathisches Bild davon ab, wie diese Erweiterung entstanden ist und was sie für viele Menschen bedeuten könnte. Aber hört selbst. War for Wakanda. From your point of view, what are the most exciting things for the players to look forward to?
I think you go, Chris. You got
No.
The environment of Wakanda itself is utterly amazing. It's so beautiful. It looks like nothing else in the game. It really does feel like you're traveling to a different world, you know? This is the first time a lot of people will revisit Wakanda as a fictional space in a long time. So I think that is so exciting to see another interpretation of this amazing fictional environment. I think it's great.
It is. It's visually stunning, truly.
Cool. All right, Chris. My next question is for you. So, after having voiced a not very unimportant character, Kratos from God of War, you're now happening to voice the very iconic Black Panther, a very iconic Marvel character. Do you think, what were the most important or striking differences for you as a voice actor to try to impersonate that characters?
T'Challa for me was a lot more personal. It was a story that I was familiar with, a character I was familiar with and have been for the majority of my life. So there was a different genesis as far as the architecture of his emotional life. He's so representative of a lot of experiences, a lot of moments in my life that it just had a different starting place. You know, Kratos was a character and a great character. And it was based in my experiences as a father. T'Challa is more based in my experiences as a Black man, as in my own emotional journey through my life, to not be singularly just protective of a child, my own child, but to be responsible for a nation, was probably the biggest differences.
I didn't know if I should ask this question, and I can leave it out if you guys don't want to answer it. But how
is it about Black?
No, the question is because I think this is a very actual important topic. Like, how important do you think is representativeness in things like comics and also video games?
It's so important, you know, representation behind the camera, you know, in the cubicle. You're both in front of the screen and behind the screen is so important. Especially when you talk about superhero characters like Black Panther, because superheroes are inherently metaphorical. They show us the best of humanity, the worst of humanity, the complexity of humanity and human nature. So when you see that reflected through characters that have cultural backgrounds that match yours or are different than yours, you can learn about how, okay, we can all embody heroism, right? We can all be heroes. We even the fact that we have different histories and different cultures motivating our actions, which is clearly the case when you look at T'Challa and Wakanda and the Avengers. They're working towards different ends, right, and different means. But if we can find common cause and a way to work together, we can achieve like these momentous things. And I think that's one of the things that's so important about representation when it comes to fictional works like video games and comic books and movies and nerd culture. Like the more inclusive we can be in thinking about these stories and how we tell them, the bigger we grow the audience and the more powerful the metaphor becomes.
I mean, it's hit the nail on the head. I've always, and I will continue to say this, the burden of, and the great honor, sci-fi, fantasy, in whatever respective medium, is not just metaphorical, it's allegorical. It's the ability to show situations, teach lessons, give hope. And that is, what I love about Black Panther. It takes scenarios that people can relate to, makes them entertaining, but also makes them thought-provoking and opens conversations. And, it used to be where sci-fi, fantasy were just strictly entertainment. Biggest explosions, the biggest fights, the biggest this, that, and the other. And now it's truly about advancing. All that's still there, but it's also about advancing conversations. And that's why I love this medium.
That was a good answer. Thank you very much. Okay, back to the not so emotional stuff. Evan, why did you choose to write for, or even if you had a choice, I don't know, but why did you choose to write for Marvel and not, for example, for DC, Dark Horse, or any other maybe independent label?
Yeah, that's a good question. I did have a choice. I was asked. But when somebody says, "Hey, do you want to write a Black Panther comic?" You don't say no, or at least I didn't then. As for potentially working for other publishers, all I say is I can't talk about everything I'm working on at present. But with working for Marvel, this character has always been my favorite superhero character. Batman's probably a close second, or actually Superman's a close second. Anyway, but it's those two can fight out for second place. T'Challa has always been my favorite, and it's because a lot of what Chris said is true about what it means to participate in the history of this character. Means that you are able to access this incredibly powerful metaphor and allegory, and it's so fun. Like it is when you're sitting down to think about a Black Panther. And the way he can operate in a story, it's always like, oh, wait, I can have him outsmart this person, this enemy, or I can have him outfight them, Black Panther talks a lot of trash in his stories, because he comes from the confidence of a culture that has never been conquered, never been colonized, right? So he's like, yeah, bring your worst, we got something for that ass, if I can get a little bit. Yeah, Wakandans are very confident. Sometimes, in a bad way. But that is one of the fun things about writing this character is, the advanced technology and kind of really strong, unbroken cultural mindset that he brings to the table is something that's really different than a lot of superhero characters.
Mm-hmm. And I think you touched on it too. Just a lot of superheroes of all colors it's about their strength, their healing abilities.
Yeah,
I love that a main part of T'Challa is intellect. Love that. And as a Black man, I think not just in comics and all portrayals of Black men, I think what's sorely missing is the intellectual part of whatever the character is. And that's one of the things I love about, because we touched on it earlier, Shuri gets a lot of the credit for being the greatest mind in Wakanda. T'Challa is also a brilliant scientist, and that's one of the things I love about it is and everything that he does, there's an intellectual flow to it. He doesn't just do things happenstance, and that's one of the things I love about T'Challa.
Chris, did you know the comics beforehand, before you got this role?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. It was very important to me as a young person to see a superhero that looked like me, that conjugated verbs, that and not to disparage any other characters.
No, yeah.
But it was of great importance to me, not only the way he moved and looked, but the way he spoke, because that's how I had to speak in my house. Like, my parents literally would make me start sentences over if they weren't grammatically structured correctly. So it was it's always been part of my own life. He has always been part of my own life.
And when you voiced him for the game, did you try to do your own interpretation of him as a character, or did you try to stay as close to the MCU T'Challa as possible?
I don't. Everything that I do, I try to make it my own. I've been blessed and fortunate enough to have a career where I only take projects that I can be the voice of the character of that I'm playing, and that it will be interpreted the way I want to interpret it. So it was in the early talks. It was I was very upfront about I wanted to have my own interpretation of T'Challa, from his emotional architecture to the dialect, and it was a lot of getting T'Challa was the dialect, which would probably is very much outside of what I've done previously with regards to how he sounds. And it wasn't something that I was in the beginning particularly comfortable with. But through really working it and really putting the work in, it got to be where I could put him on very easily, or at least it wasn't as difficult as when we started. So, and it made sense to me. Like there's a lyrical quality to his speech and to the way he ties thoughts together that was very attractive to me. But to fully invest in it took a while.
All right. Even, are you allowed to tell us a little bit more about the suits we are going to see in the expansion? Are there going to be any like Easter eggs built into them, or are they going to be very relevant to the comics?
Yeah. I think I'm allowed. I think there was a video on Twitch from Crystal Dynamics showing some of the suits. So broadly, I can say, yeah, there's definitely gonna be some Easter eggs. You know, there are gonna be some suits in there that reference famous Black Panther storylines and costumes from the comics. One of the cool things about the suits that you're gonna be able to get for Black Panther is, you know, they connect to Wakandan history in a way that is really amazing. So you have suits that look like something his ancestors would have wore. You know, the great thing about the Black Panther is that it's a mantle that gets passed on through generations, right? So, you know, people have been doing this job, you know, protecting Wakanda for centuries. So you get some suits that acknowledge that history that goes back centuries. And I think that's really cool. It's different than the suits you can get for some of these other characters.
Okay, here's the question to both of you. If you had any comic book character you would like to choose, you could choose to see as a video game character to have his own video game. Is there any other character you would really love to see as a video game?
Oh man, I have answers ready, Chris. So if I may, probably Static, who's a Black superhero character from Milestone Media. He's got electricity powers. There's a new comic book series being written by Vita Ayala that I love. He's always been a favorite. Also, Icon, which is another Milestone Media character, who is he's like kind of a riff on the Superman myth, where it's you know, an alien lands in the Deep South during slavery times and grows up basically the entire 20th century hiding his powers, and then becomes a superhero when a young woman asks him to use his powers for you know, justice in the community. I love Static and Icon so much. I would love to see them become video games.
I can't believe you said Icon. That's like, who
over there is it's the first paperback collection from when those comics were done. It's always been a favorite of mine.
Oh man, we talk about allegory and Icon, you know, not to go this in one sentence, him being able to exist through all these time periods, playing his own children, his own son.
Yeah.
Ooh, the amount of exploration that could go there. Woo.
Yes. Yeah. I'm with you on that.
We'll talk.
All right. I think that's it from my side. Do you have anything to add to the German viewers who will be seeing this?
Deutschland. Deutschland. No, it's always great, and I don't know if a lot of the audience or America, what a great supporters of sci-fi, comics, fantasy that Germany is. And I've been fortunate enough to visit Germany many times over the last 25, 30 years. And just the enthusiasm for this genre has always been overwhelming, and just so appreciative of it.
Thank you.
He said it all.
Perfect. Thank you so much. It was very good.
Thank you, Anna.
Thank you, Anna. You take care.
Take care.
You too. Stay healthy, guys.
Yes, be well.
Bye-bye.